everyone, Angela here. Life can be challenging. Trust me, I get it. However, I have learned we can either view the opposition or value the opportunity. Ponder on the problem or praise the potential. Focus on the situation or find the solution. Despite the current circumstances you're going through, I invite you to join me today as we embark on a grand adventure to discover the reasons why it's a good time to be you.
Here's the encourager herself, making every day a good day, Angela Henderson.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are so excited that you are here. Turn to your neighbor and say, it's a good time to be you. Yes, and it is. Okay, I'm going to get you to say that one more time, and this time like you mean it. It's a good time to be you. Yes, absolutely, it is. We are so glad to have you with us today. I'm very excited. I have a personal friend that's going to be joining us today, Amy Killingsworth. You know, she grew up in a pastoral home. She also has heritage in that. Her grandfather was a pastor. And Amy is an encourager, and she's also a healer. Growing up in ministry, she learned words that would also bring healing to the heart, the body, the soul, the spirit. But we're going to learn a little bit about Amy and about how she had to walk a path and a journey that really did lead to a successful business, but she also had to learn to embrace life and the imperfections of it. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, Angela here, just wanting to encourage you to pick up my new book. It's a good time to be you. You can find it on angeladhenderson.com or amazon.com. But this is a book that you definitely need. Let me help coach you so that you can know how to turn perils into pearls and trauma into treasures. You know, life is challenging and I kind of understand that. But in the pages of this book, you are going to realize that you are created in His image. Go figure out. What about choosing joy? That should be a given. Gethsemane. Not too sure about that one, Angela. How about approved? That's something that we all want. From prison to palace. Let me show you how to get out of prison and live in the palace. Sounds of the season. You've got a season in your life, a great season ahead of you. Listen for the sound so you can pick up on it. The joys of the journey to somewhere. You know, it's not just the destiny, but it's the joy of the journey. Hey, how about as for me and my house? You can make that declaration and you and your family can serve the Lord. Burn the boats. Listen, if you want to take the island, you gotta burn the boats. Get rid of all your excuses and learn to fly like an eagle. You want to get this book today so that you can move forward in all the things that God has for you. Don't waste another day being down and discouraged and depressed. You gotta know, my friend, that it truly is a good time to be you. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today, and welcome back. Now, at this time, let's give a warm welcome for our friend Amy Killingsworth. Amy, come on out. It's a good time to be you. Welcome. Oh, we're so glad to have you with us today. Have a seat. Come join us in the comfy chairs here. So, Amy, you've got a lot going on. Life is pretty good right now, isn't it?
Very, very good.
Well, I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to have you share your story with us and just all the wonderful things that God is doing. You know, as I shared earlier, you are come up from a pastoral home. You are a pastor's daughter. And so sometimes coming up from humble beginnings, and humble means a lot of times, sometimes we have certain mindsets that we have to kind of break through and work through. But you are very, very successful in what God is involving you in these days. And so why don't we just start, you take us back a little bit in history, share with us a little bit about your background and your upbringing.
Well, I had an interesting upbringing. My dad was a pastor, as you mentioned, and I also come from a family of pastors. Both of my grandfathers on each side were pastors, my mom's dad and my dad's dad.
Wow.
So growing up, it was really all I knew was living in a lifestyle of ministry and in the church. And there was some discrepancies behind what was going on in the public eye versus what was going on at home. And as I entered my teen years, my that what was going on behind the scenes kind of came out in the forefront, and my family fell apart. My parents got divorced. My dad left the ministry and actually went into business and became very, very successful as a real estate investor and as an executive for an insurance company.
Oh my gosh.
So
I remember my dad working in insurance too. We were a pastoral family, and he just did it just to basically, put food on the table. So this is pretty interesting here.
yeah, it's really interesting. So we went from, being, a pastor's family in ministry to being pretty wealthy and
Yeah.
and also then having the things happen to my family that we were very not we but that I grew up hearing criticized and judged a lot
Yes.
as a child that actually ended up happening to our family, and it was an interesting time of learning what it's like to be on the other side of being maybe judged by religious culture.
Yeah.
And it was challenging. It was a difficult time, but at the same time, it was something that I know prepared me for what I do now, the perspective that I have.
You mentioned something interesting about the religious culture and being judged by it. During that time that your family was going through that devastating period, was there anybody in the religious sect that your family could turn to, like for help and guidance?
No, when that happened, it was such a hard fall because our whole life and community was church.
Yeah.
And that was where all of our resources were rooted into. And when my parents divorced and some things came out into the open, we were ostracized, even to the point like the kids I wasn't on the worship team anymore, and I wasn't allowed to participate in leadership, and it was heartbreaking because that's where you would go, when you're in trouble and when you're hurting, and that wasn't available. So
Oh my gosh, it was almost like you were being punished for the sins of the father in this particular instance,
Right.
but there was no one to embrace you guys and help y'all heal, through that process.
Yes.
That was a big thing that you walked through. So how did you then begin your journey of living your passion and your purpose? How did that begin?
Well, that happened about age 15, and from about age 15 to, let's say, about age 28 or 29, I really kind of went off the deep end and embraced all of the things that I was not allowed to do growing up, and realized, not quickly probably as I should have, but realized that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to participate in. And so, but when I was like walking through that time of rebellion, I actually got married.
Wow.
And that marriage 13 years later, fell apart.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, when I was having children and raising them, I had some very significant health problems come up. And I had given my life to the Lord, and I was doing my best to heal from all of that, from the past trauma of my family, but also from the trauma of what I walked through myself and the choices that I had made.
Yes.
And just wasn't gaining a lot of ground.
Okay.
And life was so busy, and there were kids involved, and I was so focused on taking care of everybody else, I wasn't really taking care of myself.
Yes.
And all of that culminated when my third child was born, Christian. He's 10 years old now.
Wow. Well, when we come back, we're going to find out how Amy was able to navigate through this, to follow her passions and bring healing to herself so that she can now do that for other people. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. We have here Amy Killingsworth, just a wonderful friend that's just sharing how going through the situations in her own life has allowed her now in her business to bring healing and encouragement to others. And so, Amy, we left off where you are now having your third child. So tell us, how this process took place in your life of bringing you to wholeness and completion.
So Christian, my third child, was born by C-section, and shortly after he was born, I started having trouble breathing. I had gone home from the hospital. I was in the middle of the night. It was in the middle of the night. I started having trouble breathing, got rushed back to the hospital, and discovered I was having congestive heart failure.
Oh my gosh.
So it was completely out of the blue. I was 36 years old, never had any heart problems before. And it was kind of one of those moments in your life where I call it now in the business and the work that I do, I call it the reckoning, where you have had all of these like signs and symptoms kind of leading up to, but you haven't been paying attention to and they get louder and they get louder and they get louder. And then life finally brings you to a reckoning where you have to pay attention to what's happening in your life. And that was kind of my reckoning moment. Basically, they gave me 5 years to live. I was on a transplant list, and it was just I kept asking the doctors, why is this happening? Because I was healthy and I had never had any heart problems, and they just said it was bad luck that I had this bad scenario happen that was completely random. And
now, was it something in the pregnancy that triggered it?
Yeah, it's called peripardium cardiomyopathy.
Wow.
It's like a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
It's something random where the body, which I don't believe now in the work that I do, I don't believe in the body doing anything random, but the medical community believes it's just a random thing that happens to the heart in pregnancy. But the prognosis is dire. There's no healing from it, basically. There's no hope. The heart muscle is damaged irreparably.
So isn't it amazing, though, how they're saying there's no hope, there is no healing, this is going to deteriorate, and you have 5 years. And what the doctor said could not be done, God said it could, because obviously you're here.
Right.
And the other thing is that the number 5 represents a time of grace. And so God's grace is sufficient. Even in our weakness, His strength is made perfect. So share with us a little bit more.
And Angela, that's exactly what I have learned. And he just turned 10 last week. So it's like I made it double past
10 years. Law and order. Okay,
Yes.
so God's law is what sets the order for our life. And
That's
His
right.
word says, I am healed. That's His report.
That's
you know?
right.
Oh, that's amazing.
And all things work together for your good, because one of the hardest things that I've been through, facing your own mortality, and until you've done it, until you've had the doctors sit across and tell you that you're going to die, that you're facing a death sentence, basically, there's nothing that can prepare you for that. And it really makes you think about what you're doing and what am I doing with my life.
Yes.
And at that moment, I remember, as traumatic as it was, that it was my moment to say, I don't want to just survive, I want to thrive. I want to live. I want my life to matter. I don't want to keep doing what I've been doing.
Yes.
So I made a decision that I wasn't going out like that, and that was it was a turning point where God did heal me miraculously. So I love that part of the story, and sometimes I forget to tell it because obviously I'm still here. But I went to 3 weeks later. I went to a cardiologist that said, well, back up. So I had so many people praying for me.
Yes.
And one woman who prayed for me, she prayed the sweetest prayer. I remember it like it was yesterday. She said, Lord, I know that you have a spare parts room up in heaven. So could we just get a new heart? Could we just get a brand new heart? And could you just replace the damage with a brand new heart?
Amy, do you see that prayer? And I'm seeing a lot of different things here, not even just the physical heart, my friend, but also just that inner healing that was needed.
It's a catalyst for sure.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Keep going.
So,
this is interesting.
So I went back to a follow-up appointment with the cardiologist 3 weeks later, and his exact words were, he was, looking at the echo, which is like an ultrasound of the heart, and he said, this is not the heart that we saw 3 weeks ago. It looks like a brand new heart. And I was like, and he completely cleared me
In 3
In
weeks.
3 weeks,
3 weeks,
completely cleared
guys.
me.
Father, Son, Spirit, divine unity, the perfect will of the Father. Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
And completion too. So
Ah.
it was definitely a miraculous healing, but it wasn't the end of my story. It was actually the beginning of my story, because I had a ton of healing left to do. And I believe life is a journey of healing, and that you don't ever really get there until you go home
Yes.
and be with Jesus.
Well, I tell you what, when we come back, Amy's going to continue to share with us the rest of this story, which is still obviously being written in her life, but where we are at this point in time. So don't go away. We'll be right back. As a leader, you are a broker of gifts. So whether you are a professional, a business owner, or a ministerial leader, I would love to accompany you in transforming your ordinary staff into an extraordinary team through leadership development, team building, and personal discovery. You will learn the amazing gifts, skills, and talents that each of you have and know how to bring them together in order to do great things. So reach out to me at AngelaDHenderson.com and let's begin your amazing adventure today. And remember, it's a good time to be you. Hey everyone, welcome back. We are so glad that you're with us today. Thank you for investing your time in this. We know that you are receiving a lot of encouragement here in hearing Amy's story, and those of you out there who are looking for inner healing, it is there for you. And so Amy, you have left off where, God just gave you a new heart. I mean, and in more ways than one. So why don't you share how that happened and continue this journey that launched you into the coaching business that you now have?
Well, after I had this whole scare happen, what I realized so clearly is that if you don't have your physical health, you don't have anything. And there's a quote that I live by, that if you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. But if you don't have your health, you only have one dream. So your physical health and being able to move through the world and feel, not just be alive, but to feel good and have energy is so important. So that, and right after, about 3 months after I had my own scare with my heart, my dad died of a heart attack at age 64.
Wow.
And then my son started having some neurological issues. And so it was just like this compounding effect where I knew that I had to get my physical health and that of my family really dialed in.
Right.
So I became really passionate about that, and one thing led to another, to where I was giving a lot of advice, and I was helping other people and other mothers with similar issues with their kids, and that developed into a coaching business.
Okay.
And what happened as I began to really heal my body, one of the things that kept reoccurring was the connection between your emotional health and the emotional body and the physical body.
Yes.
And how so many, I would even argue that most physical issues have an emotional root.
Yes.
And how trauma is stored in the body.
I believe that.
And so as I began to really focus on healing, it's like physical healing is kind of the low-hanging fruit, like eat better and detox and get plenty of rest and exercise and all the things we know that we should do. But as you begin to address those, you realize there's a layer deeper than that, that's kind of the root cause, which is the trauma and the emotional patterning that we go through, and the issues of life that we pick up and that we store in our heart that actually damage our heart.
Wow.
And that we need to offer those up for healing.
Amen.
And let the Holy Spirit work in our life and heal the emotional issues, and that often leads to physical healing as well. And complete physical healing isn't always possible until the emotional root is addressed. And so I began to just help other people, and I believe my paradigm of business is that the more you help people, the more successful you are. So I don't focus on success. I focus on service and helping people. And that's always led to success. But you know how Jesus said, seek first the kingdom, and these things will be added to you.
Yes.
So just focusing on taking what I had walked through. And the other thing, too, is that I wanted that to mean something. I didn't want to just walk through what I went through for nothing.
Yes.
And so I wanted to use it to help other people. And on the body of knowledge that I had gained in my own journey, I knew that it had to be shared. So as I did that and I began focusing on serving other people, I started learning how to make a business out of it and how to have income from it, and it's just grown from there. And so nowadays, what I focus on the most, I still focus on physical healing because that is it's an integral part.
Right.
But what I focus on most is inner healing and emotional wellness, emotional health, and emotional intelligence. That's really what my business
And
is based
so,
on.
how then do you do that? Here you are, you're the businesswoman, but yet you're also the healer, and you have become an entrepreneur through this. So, how is that? How is that process?
Well, it's it's funny because my friends will say, my friends come to me and they're like, I'm dealing with this, and they want to know how to process it emotionally, and then they're like, I'm sorry to make you work, and I'm like, it's not work to me.
No, it's
It
not.
is.
Yes.
It's part of my makeup, and it's what I'm passionate about, and I love doing it. And I just figured out a way to make money at it. So I just figured out a way to charge for it, and it's something that people need and want to pay for. So I just do what I'm passionate about and what God's called me to do, and I believe that. I really believe, and I've seen it play out, is that when people pay and invest their resources and their time into something, they get a lot more value out of it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I struggled with that coming from a ministry family for a lot of years.
Yeah.
This ministry is supposed to be given away.
Yes.
But,
free counsel, free advice.
Yes.
Free.
And I
free,
did
free,
that.
Free.
And I did that so much, but I realized, the people that I give it away to don't get the results.
No.
The people that pay me get results. And so I don't give it away for free anymore.
That's so smart.
And
That
that's
is so smart.
Because if my heart is to get somebody results, then they need to have the skin in the game and they need to have the investment. And that's what my business model is,
Yes.
basically, is just serving people to where they want to go and inviting them to invest in themselves.
Well, it's so true, Amy, because the Bible tells us that where our treasure lies, there our heart is also. And so where anything that we place value on is where we're going to put our money. And so when we place value on our inner healing, on our best self, then that's where we're going to invest. And it's worth the investment.
There's no greater investment.
Absolutely.
There's nothing more important to spend your time and money on.
Absolutely. So when we come right back, Amy's going to continue to share with us where she's at now, what she's doing, some things that might be of great benefit to you that you would like to know. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Do you have a remarkable story with an extraordinary outcome? Well, if you do, I'd love to invite you to submit that to us at itsagoodtimetobeYou@gmail.com. We would love to review it for consideration, and who knows, you might just find yourself on our show. So enjoy the rest of your day, and remember, it's a good time to be you.
Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're just tuning in, we have with us Amy Killingsworth, who's just been kind of walking us through her journey of just really discovering a little bit more about herself, having some inner healing, discovering that it takes first place inside of you if you want your physical health also to be in alignment. And so, Amy, right now, what are some things that you are doing, with your coaching? One of the things that I noticed was that you mostly focus on women, and why is that?
Well, I believe that women are the change agents in the world,
agree.
and I see that time and time again. When the woman changes in the home changes.
Well, if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. And
But if she is, then everybody else is.
that's right. And women have such an incredible impact, not only in the home, but in ministry and the workplace. But as you know, being one, women are under an incredible amount of pressure, and they're overwhelmed, and they have so many demands on their time and on their energy, and that it is really difficult for them to focus on themselves and get themselves healed. And obviously my dad's not a woman, but my whole reason for doing what I'm doing is to give people what I wish my dad had had.
Okay.
And my dad did what he did because he didn't have inner healing, and people will violate their values to meet their needs.
Yes.
And so a lot of times we look at, sin, or we look at failure, and we think that person is bad, but really it's just people trying to meet needs. And what I've seen with women is when they go without their needs met, and when they go without taking care of themselves, that that shows up in places. It shows up in mothering, it shows up in their marriage, and it shows up in their work. And in order to have healthy society, we have to have healthy families. Families are the building block of society. And I really believe that focusing on women is the way to help children, to help men, and to help culture as a whole.
I believe that too, and there was a reason why the serpent approached Eve and not Adam. There was a reason for that. And because woman is the helpmate, the one that supports, the one that sustains, the one that helps to build and everything. And so,
an incredible amount of influence as well.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, even though women are your main focus, you have worked with some men as well as families. So what are some of the results that you've seen from that?
Well, it's ironic because my own marriage fell apart, and that was a part of the journey that I had to walk through. But the thing I hear most often is, "You saved my marriage."
Wow.
And I don't do marriage counseling. I don't have a marriage product. What I have is an inner healing product. Yeah. And so when it's a coaching program, and when somebody goes through that process and learns emotional intelligence and learns to recognize patterns and to become conscious in their patterns and choose differently. And by a pattern, I mean this, like something that you do unconsciously, and that it's damaging and it causes problems. And when you recognize patterns and you begin to come conscious and choose differently, you can choose, you can choose how you want your life to go. And that affects everything. And the thing that I hear most often is that you saved my marriage because of emotional intelligence and learning how to be a woman. Like culture tells women a lot of times that their femininity is weak and it's not, welcome. And then you find women trying to play the role of a man inside the home, and that ends up causing conflict.
Yes.
Not surprisingly.
Wow. Wow. So, Amy, with that being said, how would someone be able to connect with you if they were interested in what you have to offer?
Well, everything is on my website, which is just my name. It's www.amykillingsworth.com. I also have a podcast, and my podcast is called Rise to Reign. REIGN, Rise to Reign podcast. It's syndicated on all the major podcast platforms. And I really lay out the process of emotional healing in my podcast episodes, like line upon line, precept upon precept.
Wonderful. Well, Amy, thank you so much for sharing with us today, sharing with our family and our friends. And I just encourage you all, you don't have to stay the same. If there are things in your life that are just holding you back or bringing you pain, there is hope for that. There is healing for that. And so reach out and connect. And I know Amy would be more than happy to help you. So, Amy, when did you realize it was a good time to be you? Huh?
Well, Angela, when I met you. I mean, it connected with all the things that I believe and that I teach, but hearing you say it over and over again has really helped me focus on it.
Well, it's my honor. Amy, how about at the count of 3, we let everybody know it's a good time to be you, okay?
Absolutely.
1, 2, 3. It's a good time to be you. Everyone, to connect with Amy, just go to her website at www.amykillingsworth.com. Also, check out her health and wellness website at sovereignwellness.solutions. And remember, it's a good time to be you.